What is up, YouTube? My name is Trinity and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. And I would also like to wish all of you a very happy new year. I know I was gone for a week, but I just wanted to enjoy that week celebrating the holidays with family. But I am back and more excited than ever to get out more content for you guys. Though with the dawning of a new year, of course, you also have to let go of the old. So today we are going to finally be concluding our Cryptids from Every State series. I've had so much fun researching all of these different cryptids and learning about states that I had never really given a second thought about. It's been really fun, and maybe I'll revisit the series in the future just because there are so many cool cryptids in every state that go beyond just Bigfoot or your average lake monster, which is what I was worried this series would just turn into, different variations of Bigfoot. But honestly, I think for the most part, we've avoided Bigfoot, Sasquatch-like creatures and have stuck to some pretty interesting, unique stuff. The first state that we are going to be talking about today is South Dakota, and we are going to be talking about the Lake Kampeska creature. So there has only been one sighting of this creature that occurred in 1888 by a group of people having a picnic on the shore of the lake. Now, I wasn't able to find too many details about the people that were having the picnic or their professions or anything, but it was noted that they were well-educated individuals. Apparently, from the shore, they saw a massive creature breach the surface of the water, and by massive, I don't mean like 50 feet long, I'm saying like 200 feet. Given the size of most lakes, that is insane because I'm pretty sure the biggest fish is the whale shark, which can reach about 100 feet at its largest, and they live in the ocean, so there's a lot more space than your average lake. Of this 200-foot scaly reptilian creature, 30 feet of it was a fluked tail. So rather than having a tail like a crocodile or alligator, it had a fluked tail like, say, a whale or a shark, though I'm not sure of the orientation of the fish. It apparently had large crests on its head, and the head itself was as large as a yearling calf. The thing that differentiates this lake monster, though, is that when it opened its massive jaws, the spectators on the shore said that it let out this horrible, unearthly laugh. The quote is, "Opening its jaws, it uttered the most unearthly laugh that ever broke on mortal ears." So I'm wondering if these people were kind of implying that this thing wasn't even a natural creature, like it was demonic in some way, which I don't know if I've ever really heard of, like a supernatural sea monster. Or I guess supernatural would be the wrong term, but like one specifically associated with hell and demons and stuff like that. Next, we are going to be talking about the Tennessee Cumberland Dragon. This creature is also a pretty obscure one. There is also only one sighting of it. The story first broke on December 4th of 1794 in the Caledonian Mercury newspaper. However, the actual incident happened in February of the same year. A mounted infantry was going up Caledonian Mountain, and they were about 15 miles into climbing this mountain. The infantry sent out 2 scouts ahead of them just to scout out any upcoming terrain or trouble that may be coming their way. And it's these 2 scouts that were the only witnesses of the Cumberland Dragon. They apparently encountered a 4-foot-tall bipedal creature covered in black, brown, and yellow scales with a white tuft of fur on top of its head and angry, fiery red eyes. And this creature apparently stared them down for about 3 minutes. And the scouts couldn't shoot or really do anything in that time because they were under orders not to shoot unless, unfortunately, they came across any natives in the area. Mind you, they are in the snow at this point on a mountain, so this creature wasn't easily making this jump. It apparently emitted a blood-like substance from its mouth and then began to flee, though it turned back several times as if considering whether it wanted to go back and attack the scouts. And later, when the scouts and the rest of the party continued in that direction, they said oddly, the footprints looked like that of a goose, only much bigger. So not quite the lizard reptilian footprints that you would expect. Next, we are going to be talking about the La Lechuza of Texas. La Lechuza, which translates to the owl or Spanish barn owl, is thought to be a shape-shifting witch or spirit of Mexican folklore. Now, the origins specifically are not known, though a lot of people say that La Lechuza was originally a woman who sold her soul to the devil in exchange for evil powers. And at night, she transforms into this huge bird creature but retains her face, resembling the harpies of Greek mythology, though she can allegedly also transform into other animals such as cats, dogs, and goats. She has glowing red eyes and can emit a hellish screech that can be heard from miles and miles away. She can allegedly be traced back to Mayan and Aztec folklore, and while I'm not sure if that is completely true, shapeshifters and creatures like this in native cultures, since Mexico is native land as well, is very common. In fact, one of the most famous cryptids, which I'm not going to be saying the name of, but you could probably guess what it is a shapeshifter. And owls, specifically in some indigenous cultures, are seen as evil or just unlucky messengers. Some natives think it is bad luck to look into the eyes of an owl. Most sightings of her happen in rural areas or isolated highways or forests. She's often depicted as seeking revenge for those who have wronged her or her family, though if this is such an old curse, I'm wondering how your modern day person could harm her. But coming into contact with her is said to put a curse on you, and you will experience misfortune, illness, just bad luck in general, and maybe even death. Though if you do happen to come across her, you may have some hope, because apparently carrying iron objects or salt and praying can protect you from her. Next, we are going to be talking about the Utah Great Salt Lake whales. In 1888, the Salt Lake Herald-Republican published a story that was originally published in a Canadian newspaper. It talked about James Wickham, a British entrepreneur and biologist, who had allegedly released 2 whales into the Great Salt Lake in the year 1875 in order to establish a breeding population to introduce the whale oil industry to Utah. These whales were apparently captured off of the coast of Australia, though the exact species was never given. They were then transported to San Francisco, California, and then in specialized seawater-filled containers on a train to Utah. They were first released into a decently sized pen to keep them contained within the lake. However, they immediately broke through the fencing and disappeared into the depths. However, this was not the last time these whales were seen, because a few years later, an associate of Mr. Wickham apparently saw the whales and their offspring playing in the lake. In May of the same year, the Jefferson County Inquirer published another article saying that the whales had grown immensely in size in this time, and they have established a breeding population. And in 1890, the Utah Daily Inquirer said that these whales have reached 60 feet long and are thriving in the lake along with their offspring, and that Wickham's experiment had been a success. Now, if this sounds completely absurd to you, congratulations, you have a functional brain and are able to ask questions. The Utah Salt Lake whales are not real. Whales have never been released into the lake. And of course, along with just the absurdity of the story in general, there's many reasons why this would never work. One, the salinity of the Salt Lake is between 1.5 to 8 times higher than that of regular seawater. So that on its own would make it a pretty inhospitable place to most marine mammals. The lake also has an average depth of 15 to 16 feet, and its max depth is only about 46 feet. There's also the transportation of whales, which I'm not sure how advanced that sort of technology was back then, but I'm going to guess that considering the original article also referenced whales laying eggs, which we know they definitely do not, I'm not going to put a lot of stock into how far technology and advancement of transporting marine mammals was back then. The next one we are going to be talking about is the Vermont Offal. Now, this is a cryptid that apparently looks so hideous and horrifying that the only name they could come up with it was the Offal. Now, this creature originated in Richford and Berkshire, and the first sighting, I'm not sure which town it started in, but it happened in the early 1900s when 2 or 3 workers were crossing the Main Street Bridge, and they just happened to look up and they met the eyes of something awful. They met the eyes of a creature that is kind of reminiscent of a griffin, but the head is kind of ambiguous, It had gray coloration and wings with a wingspan of 10 to 20 feet. Apparently, the appearance of this creature was so awful that one of these men even had a heart attack. Now, this man did survive, but according to his family, for weeks after the encounter, they would be woken up in the middle of the night to him screaming, and he said in his dreams he was just being watched and terrorized by this creature. And apparently this was just the common way to see the creature. It would perch on rooftops and watch people working in fields all day, or look in windows and just watch menacingly. It's also apparently the inspiration for several of H.P. Lovecraft's works. And in 1925, he decided to visit Richford and Berkshire to investigate the sightings for himself. Next, we are going to be talking about the Virginia Bunny Man and the 2 real-life encounters that may have inspired further legends around him. So who or what is the Bunny Man? So the Bunny Man has become more of a supernatural entity who's associated with the underpass of bridges, much like, say, Goatman and other creatures like that. Very much an urban legend. He's apparently your average man who wields an axe or a hatchet and wears a bunny suit and just goes around threatening people, really. However, there are 2 real-world encounters that happened in 1970 in Burke, Virginia, that likely sparked this whole urban legend. On October 19th of 1970, Robert Bennett and his fiancée were visiting family in town. Around midnight that night, they were apparently returning from a football game and had parked in a field across the street from the relative they were visiting. This road was Guinea Road. The 2 of them were just sitting in the front seat of the car with the motor running and just talking. Maybe they were waiting to go in, or maybe they were gonna head home for the night. However, that's when they noticed a dark figure moving around the rear window. Very suddenly then, the front passenger side window was shattered, and outside a man stood wearing a white suit and, by Bennett's account, a pair of bunny ears. Bennett quickly turned the car around, trying to get them the hell out of there, while the man started ranting and raving very aggressively. He said, "You're on private property and I have your tag number." And as they drove, just trying to get away from this lunatic, they realized that the thing that he had used to smash the window was a hatchet, which was now lying on the floor of the car. When speaking to police, Bennett's girlfriend disagreed that it was bunny ears that the man was wearing. She said instead he was wearing a caparot. I had to look up what that is, and I would much rather the bunny ears. Think pointy white hood, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I'd take the bunny ears in that situation as well. However, what gives credence to Bennett's interpretation of what they saw was a man that also had an encounter on Guinea Road only 10 days later. Construction security guard Paul Phillips began to approach a man that was standing on the porch of an unfinished building that I assume he was there to keep trespassers from. And this man who was standing on the porch was wearing a gray, black, and white bunny costume and was chopping at the porch with a long-handled axe. And he said to Paul, "You're trespassing. If you come any closer, I'll chop off your head." But after both of these incidents, no culprit was ever found, so the bunny man kind of got away. For some reason, the fact that this guy was just worried about something as minor as, like, trespassing on apparently unfinished properties or random fields makes it all the creepier. This man dressed as a bunny and took an axe over some bullshit you would see in, like, a Bad Neighbors subreddit. Next, we are going to be talking about Washington, and we are going to be talking about the Dragon of Lake Chelan. Now, this creature apparently is not native to the U.S. However, it was brought here as an egg on the ship of Captain Chelan from Fort August, Scotland. Now, this creature is believed to be related to Nessie, or the Loch Ness Monster, who is always thought to be female. However, this creature is said to be male, and maybe through sexual dimorphism, he has the ability to fly. He has immense, powerful wings. The first account of this creature happened in December of 1892, when 3 men were attacked by this immense reptilian creature that emerged from the depths grabbing one of their friends and then flying off with him. Now, this lake is about 55 miles long, so it's not like a huge place for a dragon to apparently reside. However, it is said to be 1,468 feet deep at its deepest point, and many say that there are underwater caverns for it to hide in as well, or even a passageway to the sea, which would give it a lot more access to prey and explain why it's not often seen. Another similar account, but probably the most famous related to this creature, was about 3 travelers from Boise City, Idaho. They happened to be at the upper end of Lake Chelan, and one of them decided to get into the water just to clean himself off. And that's when he felt something latch onto his foot. And this thing began dragging him to the depths, but luckily his screams alerted his fellow companions that something was wrong, and they got to him in time and pulled him out of the water, along with the creature still latched to his foot. Now, this thing apparently had the legs and the body of an alligator or a crocodile, though the head and eyes were more like that of a snake. And in between the forelegs and back legs, it had a set of large ribbed wing-like structures. Now, no matter what these people did, whether it be trying to pull the guy's leg out or hitting the creature or trying to open its jaws, nothing worked, and the creature just kind of sat there limply, not doing anything, not further trying to consume this man or drag him to the depths. Finally, they had the idea to try to use fire on him. Maybe burn it, or the fire would scare it off, make him open his jaws, and he'd go back in the water. Or at the very least, he'd open up and they could get away. However, when the fire got close to the creature, its wings unfurled immediately, and it took flight with the man still in its mouth. And the 2 other companions could only watch as they saw this creature fly over the lake, getting smaller and smaller as it got farther away, and then dive into the lake with their friend, never to be seen again. Next up is the West Virginia. This next one coming up is really, really unique, and I really like it, so I'm excited to share it with you. Next is the West Virginia Veggie Man. So this first sighting takes place in 1968 by Jennings Frederick, while he was out hunting in the woods surrounding Fairmont, West Virginia. As a hunter, you know a lot of the normal sounds, at least in the woods that you're familiar with, the animals that you're most likely to come across. Even if you hear some weird noises, just from your experience being out there, you should have a pretty good idea of what's around you. But when he started hearing this high-pitched jabbering sound, he was dumbfounded as to what it could be. He said it sounded like a record player playing too fast. He followed the noise out of curiosity and then came face to face with a 7-foot-tall humanoid being. I don't know if I can call it a creature just because it seems to be sentient plant life almost. It apparently had large ears and luminous eyes that rapidly changed between red and yellow. Thin arms that were reminiscent of reeds on the bank of a river, and very long fingers that ended in suction cups, and all over the fingers were thorns. He said that the being looked unwell and sickly, like it needed help. He said that the high-pitched jabbering noise continued and began to sped up like the thing was excited until he began to understand some words that it was trying to communicate to him, potentially through telepathy. Apparently, it said, "You need not fear me. I wish to communicate. I come as a friend. We know you all. I come in peace. I wish medical assistance. I need your help." After this, the creature then lunged at him, apparently wrapping Jennings in a tight embrace to the point where he could feel the thorns piercing his skin, and as his blood was being drained, he was hypnotized by the rapid flashing of the creature's eyes. And as quickly as he was pulled into this hug, the creature then detached from him and ran up a hill nearby, and then later Jennings said that he heard this metallic humming sound, like that of a machine, and he said he assumed it was probably some sort of spacecraft that the creature had. And I guess that's not a very out there assumption to make, considering, like, you just met a vegetable man. So why wouldn't he fly a spaceship? Next, we are going to be talking about the Wisconsin Mineral Point Vampire. The first sighting of the Mineral Point Vampire happened on March 14th of 1981, so fairly recently. Apparently, a lone officer was patrolling in the Graceland Cemetery when he came face to face with a very tall, pale figure. This man, as he thought it was dressed fully in black and wore a cape, which is pretty uncommon nowadays. Now, in an effort to act as suspicious as possible, this man booked it in the opposite direction of the officer, and the officer gave chase. It wasn't a very long pursuit, however, because the man that the police officer was chasing jumped 6 feet straight into the air to jump over the fence of the cemetery. The officer apparently came back the next morning just to retrace his steps and try to figure out what the fuck he saw the other day. But when he went to the outside of the cemetery, there were no footprints where the man would have landed at all. The footprints ended where he jumped over the fence. The next sighting takes place in 2004. The next sighting happens in 2004 as police responded to a call about a man looking in the windows of an apartment building while sitting in a tree. When they get there, they saw this very pale man just sitting in the tree, clad in all black and wearing a cape. Apparently, the man jumped down from the tree, and again, the police pursued him, but they did lose track of him. However, when they did find his footprints, they ended at a 10-foot concrete wall. And there was no indication that he had maybe turned or gone a different way. They just ended right at the concrete wall, as if he had jumped over it. And the final encounter with the vampire happens in 2008 at Ludden Lake. A couple was there fishing off of a pier when they heard scratching and just a disturbance from beneath the pier. They assumed it was probably some sort of animal, so they took a flashlight and shined it down between the boards to see what it was when they saw a pale white face staring at them. They booked it, leaving their fishing supplies, and ran towards their car, but this man apparently pursued them. They finally got in their car and they were racing away, but once they were safe in the car, one of them looked behind them to get a better look at the man, and the description was a tall, pale man, completely head to toe in black, with a black cape on. When police later went to investigate, they found nothing there except the abandoned fishing rods and equipment. And as for the last creature that we are going to be talking about in this series, I'm a little emotional. It took a long time to get here, but I had a lot of fun doing it. We are going to be talking about Wyoming, and we are going to be talking about the Desmet Lake Monster, also known as Smetty. Now, this first alleged encounter happened to an indigenous woman. I could not find any indication of what nation she belonged to, but she went to the shore of Desmet Lake, and she had her baby with her, and she set her baby in a papoose, which is kind of like a baby carrier. You put it either on your chest or on your back, and she set her baby in one near the shore as she was skinning rabbits. All of a sudden, before she could react, a creature jumped out from the depths of the water, grabbing her baby and dragging it back into the water with it. Now, this creature was incredibly large. It had scales. Its mouth was ginormous. It was nothing that should have been in that lake. The next notable sighting was sometime in the early 1900s when a group of ranchers were just observing their horses drinking from the edge of the lake. And they noticed over time the horses seemed to get more skittish, unsettled. There was just something wrong. They weren't comfortable. Now, oddly enough, one of the ranchers had recently returned from a safari in Africa and noted that the behavior of the horses was very similar to the prey species there when there were crocodiles around. And eventually they spotted whatever was spooking these horses, and it did look like a crocodile to an extent, a little different, a little older, and instead of legs, it had flippers. Now, theories range on what Smetty could be, from the usual suspects, which could be just a random wave, a stick in the water, to something more like Nessie, a plesiosaur, or even a mosasaur, since that seems to be more accurate to what people were seeing. But thank you all so much for watching this final addition to the series. I had so much fun making it, and I hope you guys had so much fun as well listening to it and learned about stuff other than, Bigfoot and Mothman, even though no shade to Mothman because he is the best cryptid. Fight me on it. Before I go, I just want to give you guys a little hint as to exciting stuff that is coming in the future. The next video that I hope to upload is related to a creature that we talked about in this video. And if you want to make your guess, leave it down below and maybe I'll give you a hint if you're right. It is related to a horror movie that recently came out that I do want to talk about once I get the chance to see it. And that creature is also related to another project that I've been working on recently that I hope to officially announce to you guys soon because I have been working very hard on it over the holiday. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like and leave a comment down below. It really helps my channel get out to other people. It's such a simple and easy way to support creators, and I would really appreciate it because my goal for this year, I don't like making New Year's resolutions, but my goal for this year is to reach 1,000 subscribers and to become monetized. Because when I can finally start making money off of this channel, not that everything's about money, but when I'm able to make this my livelihood, I will be able to put so much more time, effort, and love into it, even though I put all that I can afford right now into this channel already. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you'll be notified anytime I upload. And you'll especially want that turned on for all the sorts of upcoming videos I have in the new year. I also have a special video planned for any anime lovers out there. So if you are excited about that or have any suggestions, leave them down below and make sure you are subscribed and the bell is rung. And if you have missed any episodes of our Cryptids from Every State series, don't worry, I got you. I will leave it at the end of this video so you can catch up if you missed anything or just relive it all over again. Thank you all so much. I love you all so much. Happy New Year, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.